Okay, for the next few minutes, let's think about the general subject of the future. Now, for a lot of people, that's sort of a lot of vague patterns out there. It's fuzzy. So people go, oh, I just live my life one day at a time. It is hazy, but if we look at our past, we can begin to see it fairly clearly. There's actually 20/20 vision. With perfect hindsight, we can see where we've come from. And then, given that, we can begin to look at the present and analyze what's happening to us right now, how we're behaving on a day-to-day basis. But for the future, there are a lot of questions. What's out there for us? What can we see? Do we have any real control over our destiny? Now, a lot of people worry. Over the past few years, I've had hundreds of people ask me, what's going to happen in the future? What's coming up for all of us? People ask questions like, what's going to happen when all those yippee-skippy hippies from the 1960s and 70s become middle-aged and start taking over? And they are. A lot of those wilted flower children are facing the big 4-0. Thick in the middle, thinning on top. As they get into key positions, will they screw up our systems? Are we turning into a nation of yogurt-eating joggers? What will happen when today's top leaders check into Sun City? Are we losing good old American traditions like hard work, stick-to-itiveness, patriotism? What about motherhood and apple pie? Are they being replaced by joint custody and Sara Lee? Maybe all those doom and gloom people are right. Are we declining like the Romans? What about you personally? Wouldn't you like to get a little peek into your future? Sure you would. That's why the most popular section in newspapers is the horoscope. If they leave it out, their switchboard short circuits. Now, I know you haven't done this, but I'll bet you know someone who's been to a psychic reader or a fortune teller. Do you know anyone who has the chutzpah to not open their fortune cookie at a Chinese restaurant? No, we can't resist it. And then, of course, there's all those predictions in the National Enquirer. Of course, you don't buy that trashy thing, but I'll bet a lot of you speed read it while you're standing in the checkout line and then stick it back in. Now, the National Enquirer may never hit it right, but a lot of people are serious about the future. A lot of corporations, people throughout the business world are becoming very concerned, setting up their own future planning groups. There are now specialized consultants on the future. For big bucks, groups like the Stanford Research Institute and John Naisbitt, the plotter of megatrends, will give statistically sound advice. Futurists are no longer starry-eyed dreamers. They're people as grounded as Roger Smith, the president of General Motors. He describes himself as future-oriented. No weirdos there. And the future's a big question in a lot of religious areas. All sorts of religious leaders, from the Pope to Billy Graham to Jerry Falwell, are talking about growing conflict between good and evil forces. They see the shadows of Armageddon. In education, a whole series of national studies say we're not doing an adequate job preparing our young for the future. Our young people themselves are depressed. Surveys before and after ABC television's The Day After Nuclear Holocaust drama found 75% of the 12 to 17-year-olds do not expect to grow old and die naturally. They fear we'll all go boom. And that should be depressing for us adults. If our kids don't expect to grow up, in many areas of our lives, there is a nagging suspicion that things aren't right. Increasingly, everything's not coming up roses. There are no guarantees. In fact, most warranties only last 90 days, and they're limited at best. As Yoda, the little green wise man from the Star Wars series, said, the future is always in flux. You see, the players are in place. We're here, but the final script is subject to change. Unless it's canceled, then the future is the one thing we're all going to have to deal with. Now, since we don't have a crystal ball, our picture of the future is fuzzy at best. But let's consider, what would we like to see out there? If you could wave a magic wand, what would you create? A great body, a pile of money, a Mercedes convertible, a new spouse? All the answers I've heard or seen, from psychological studies to just talking with hundreds of people, They all fall into three categories. Basically, all people seem to want three pieces for the future. First, people want a piece of the action, a piece of the action of life. Now, a lot of our present and future problems are all about people not having a piece of the action. They just want a share of life's bounties and some control over their own destinies. In Central America, in South Africa, in the Middle East, the conflicts are all over how to divide the pieces. In our own urban ghettos, in companies or communities where some people are still treated second class, third class, or no class citizens. The pressures are for an equal shot at the goodies. If you shut out people, you light a fuse for the future, a short fuse for the future. Really, a lot of the wants are really simple. Food, so as to not starve, decent shelter, a job, a vision of a future, a safe future for the children. Now, beyond having some goodies, and let's face it, millions of us have far more than we need. The second piece is something money really can't buy. Peace of mind. Peace of mind. At ease with oneself. Peace of mind is in here. The mind and the heart. Inner peace. Life without Valium. Life without needing to escape in booze or drugs. Just feeling good naturally. You know, when we have no fears, no guilt, no regrets, we're at ease with ourselves and the people around us. But peace of mind is elusive and fleeting, and you can't charge it on your Visa card. Peace of mind can truly be only if we have the third piece. Peace for the world. Peace in the world is a dream that exists for a lot of people. It's all interrelated. Wars that are going on right now are just grabs for pieces of the action. People, territory, resources. We can't have true peace in the world as long as anyone feels separated or exploited. Now, this piece is pretty obvious. Just because none of us has ever seen a world of peace, it is possible, especially if most of the world gets the first two pieces. Now, these three pieces are not easy pieces, but they are possible, reachable, if we change the way we look at the world. The key is to see what we see, how we see, where we see. Literally see in its broadest sense. Then we know, understand that what we are is where we see. Where we see ourselves in the future is where we'll take ourselves. Now, most of us think what we see is what anybody with good common sense sees. I mean, really, why can't other people clearly see the way things are and the way they should be? I mean, let's be reasonable. Isn't it obvious what the answer is to unemployment? Surely people recognize what's behind all this women's issue stuff. Isn't it pretty clear what we should do about the Russians? And we know who should have the final say about abortion. I mean, aren't you about up to here with people who don't understand, can't understand about world hunger, gun control, crime, national defense, the death penalty, prayer in schools, TV programs, X-rated movies? Really? I've got some answers. Don't you? Of course you do. But my answers and your answers and other people's answers, your kids' answers, your spouse's answers, your mother's answers, the president's answers don't agree much, if at all. Are you right and everybody else is stupid out there? No, not at all. We just see the world differently, very differently. We have simply different points of view. Different points of view about how things should be and how our lives should run. Now, our own point of view is perfectly okay. It's normal. But our point of view, yours, mine, is at the very heart of every problem we have. We didn't choose it, we can't lose it, but we can defuse it if we understand it. Now, everybody has a point of view. It's like your navel. You wouldn't exist if you didn't have a navel. Now, we all assume that our point of view is the way to see things. The truth is, and let's face it, we don't like to admit it, but the truth is, any point of view is always limited. No one knows it all, no one has done it all, no one can see it all. Our point of view is limited to our experiences. We literally, physically see things differently. You, this second, see me differently. If you're on the left side, you see me one way. If you're on the right side, you see me different. If you're over here, you don't know that my right ear hasn't fallen off. You can't see it from your point of view. We can't see it all, don't know it all, haven't done it all. Well, where did we get our special little view of the world? First, from our senses. We absorbed from the world around us. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, our senses are like 5 channels. They tell us what's out there. Our mind doesn't know anything. It's just locked up inside our head. Our senses feed us data, just like CBS, ABC, and NBC. So all that stuff just comes in. Then we add meaning, our own judgments and feelings about those things. Even as little kids, we began to judge things. Phase 2 was interpretation, meaning. We liked something, chocolate, being hugged, laughing, great stuff. We disliked other things, squash, yuck, being sad, getting hurt, not good. Those were our own pure feelings. But an awful lot of our point of view was dumped into us secondhand judgments from other people. As we were growing up, we were barraged with information and points of view from other people. Parents, teachers, friends, ministers, playmates, coaches, the media, they all put their 2 cents worth on top of what we were thinking. Now, sometimes we resisted, but mostly we just absorbed, took in data and thoughts of other people without question. We didn't come equipped with biases, prejudices, values. Do you think that hookers, Republicans, vegetarians, male chauvinist pigs, and redneck mothers all just popped out of the womb that way? No, they can't help it. Their point of view was molded and shaped by others, just like yours was, without your permission. All those others bombarded us in our mind. The lines became blurred between what we really knew and what we came to believe. Today, many adults don't know the difference. We think we know the truth, but most of it was just laid on us secondhand. All of this is the exact process that I described in depth in my first program, What We Are is Where We Were When. Right now, we're basically behaving using the total value system that was programmed into us during our formative years of growing up. Clearly, we didn't choose our point of view, and we can't lose it. For all intents and purpose, we became our point of view. Millions of people just walk around being their point of view. Now, there is a critical difference between you and your point of view. When we let our point of view define us, we limit ourselves. What we do, what we think, what we believe, we can be. You know, when Jesse Jackson gets young people to declare, "I am somebody," he's applying basic Norman Vincent Peale power of positive thinking. He's getting them to change their point of view about their own potential. Listen, watch people being their point of view. Watch people on the Donahue Show. I mean, those Chicago housewives come out of the woodwork. Think about a 25-year-old employee who's being hassled and goes, "You could take this job and shove it." How about a 60-year-old woman who walked out of one of my live presentations of the first program? "I'm not going to listen to any more of this filth." Or recently my father was watching some hang gliders. "You wouldn't catch me doing a darn fool thing like that." Listen to any bureaucrat. We can't do that. It's not our policy. Jerry Falwell, "God'll get you for that." Or the boss who says, "Well, son, when you've been around as long as I have." Or the employees everywhere who go, "I don't know, I just work here." People wear their points of view on T-shirts and bumper stickers. Recently on a university campus, I saw "Arms are for hugging," a friend of Leo Buscaglia. At the airport in Dallas, "Russia sucks." Now that's pretty clear. At a shopping center in Shreveport, Louisiana, "The Bible says it, I believe it, that settles it." On the freeway in San Jose a few weeks ago, I saw a bumper sticker on a truck that said, "I love my computer." And right next to him was a car that said, "Real men don't have floppy disks." And up in San Francisco, one guaranteed to offend everyone: "Nuke the unborn gay whales for Christ." Now, some people take their point of view to extremes. Anorexics are dying for their point of view. They've bought into the whole scene of, if you're going to be accepted, you've got to be thin and beautiful. And they get so thin, they literally blow away. Our fanatics and censors, you know, "Oh, there are a few bad words. Let's just take all the books, even dictionaries, out of libraries." Fanatics is those who reacted recently to Jane Fonda. As she was going around the country promoting her exercise clothing, all of a sudden she had to cancel appearances because people started calling department stores and saying, "I remember when that slut went over to Hanoi in 1972, and by God, I'm going to cancel my charge account with you if you let her come in your store." Irma Bombeck recently said, "Anyone watching more than 30 hours of football on TV each week should be declared legally dead." We've all got a point of view about food, about sex, about politics, about being parents, about Baptists, about Jews, about Hare Krishnas, about management, about unions, about customer service, product design, money, men wearing earrings, you name it, and you have a point of view. And you didn't choose it, and you can't lose it. And if we stay stuck in our little point of view, we're going to be like a little machine that keeps doing the same thing, the same thing, the same thing. We're going to stay pointed in the same direction. We'll get stuck in a rut, and we're just going to rut on into our future. You know, I know a woman getting her fourth divorce. Fourth divorce. She keeps getting dipshits. We say, "Carol, wise up." She finds another one. I mean, talk about a slow learner. Once people get in a pattern, they just keep doing it. Our point of view says, this is the way the world is. We do these things. Now, how does this happen? It's really very simple. The prevailing point of view of people will direct their decisions, and their decisions trigger actions. Actions which create the future, create results in those people's lives. It's basic cause and effect, and it looks like this. Prevailing point of view, actions, future results. This is the way it works for the country, for companies, for families, for you. It all works the same. For example, the current prevailing point of view of the administration in Washington leads to decisions, actions that we are taking in Central America, the Middle East, on the farms of Iowa, and even in our pocketbooks. When Washington bureaucrats screw it up, their decisions create results, a future that we're going to have to live with. Or the point of view of a company president gives the direction that impacts the future of that company. You know, when Lee Iacocca took over the Chrysler Corporation, his point of view changed the going down the tube direction of an entire company. If parents have the point of view that their children can't be trusted, then the parents act in ways that create untrustworthy children. Thousands of studies on juvenile delinquents clearly show that they were treated as if they were bad and dumb, so they became bad and dumb. Now, once we declare our point of view to be true, we act to make it come true. It's a classic life becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Historically, we know all sorts of companies that do that in bad times. If you go back to the Great Depression or even the recent economic dip, people go, "Oh, it's a depression. Oh, we got to cut back. Business is bad. Cut the advertising, cut the training, cut the hiring." And sure enough, it is. We make the decisions from our point of view. Nobody does it to us. The gods aren't angry. We're doing it to ourselves. No foreign power is subversively manipulating us. There's no spaceship out there beaming down bad vibes. As Pogo so beautifully said, we have met the enemy, and he is us. Well, the enemy really isn't us. It's our points of view. Our points of view screw us up. There's nothing wrong with us. We're kind of neat. Don't you ever stand in front of a mirror and go, hey, baby, not bad. It's working. You know, there's nothing wrong with the Russians. It's the Russians' point of view that stinks. Hey, the Russians are great people. Hell, they invented vodka. You can't be bad and invent vodka. Of course we don't see eye to eye with the Russians. We can't see eye to eye with anyone unless they've had the same background. So is that it? Are we just stuck in and with our point of view? We can't get rid of our past, right? It's there. It happened. All that stuff came in on us. Then we had all those ups and downs and goods and bads. Oh, the drama of it all. And here we are in the present. How do we get unstuck? How do we get out of our ruts? How do we stop being a little machine, bumping into all those other little machines out there? We go up, 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 and away. Up to a viewing point. A viewing point that gives us a different perspective on the world. A viewing point that literally allows us to see differently. If you go up to a viewing point, you can really see. You can see it all. The past, the present, and the future. And the options, the choices available. We get the lessons from the past, we can evaluate the present, and we can choose our own future. We literally transform where we see. We are at choice, have options, see potentials. We become objective and non-judgmental. When you go to a viewing point, then you get to become like the guy in the V8 juice commercials. You see choices. Wow, I could have had a V8. You stop doing the same thing, Orange juice, orange juice. You expand your consciousness. Your awareness of the world opens up. You have your point of view plus a lot more. You include other points of view, and everything changes. All your decisions. It's your point of view plus the point of view of A plus the point of view of B, C, all those other people. You literally will create a different future because the basis of your decision changes. There's more information, more data, more perspective. It's like an aerial photo. If you take an aerial photo, you see all sorts of things that were hidden before. If you go to a viewing point, you can see the forest, not just the trees. Well, how do you get to a viewing point? What is the process that will get you out of the rut of your point of view? You simply rise. Rise up. Rise away. Rise to it. 4 simple little steps to rise to a viewing point. Now, the first one is relax. Relax. Just sort of pull back. Detense yourself mentally and physically. You know, if you're plugged in, your point of view is dominating. You have to remove yourself, if only for a few seconds. Now, you probably remember hearing that great advice, count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4. But most of us go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you son of a bitch, I'm going to get you. That's not cooling it. Excellent advice. Relax. Meditate, take a hot bath, do something physical, take a walk, cool down, pray. Find your way to calmness, your way to relax. Try to see a light side to things, a lighter side. Laughter may be the best medicine. You know, even the most serious situation can be viewed with humor. I have a very good friend who has a problem with his car. He keeps running into things. It keeps hitting stuff. It hits trees, it hits fences, it hits buildings, and recently he hit and killed a person. A man stepped in front of his car, he didn't even see him, and boom, all of a sudden Todd was there in the middle of total hell. Now, that is a very serious situation when all of a sudden you've killed another human being. But his friends, realizing that it was necessary to try to pull him out of his depression, went out to Todd's car and did a little thing like they used to do with airplanes in World War II. They went to the front hood of his car, and on the hood they painted a series of little symbols, a couple of little houses and a fence, and then a little stick figure of a man. And all of a sudden, the fender of his car looked like the airplanes looked in World War II when they had paint all the strikes that they had accomplished on their missions. Now, that was lightening up, loosening him up in terms of a very critical situation. But it is unbelievably important to do that. You know, another good friend of mine who is an ex-tennis ace, when he gets real frantic and he's rushing through airports and trying to catch planes and their appointments and their schedules and all this stuff is coming in on him, he sort of pulls back and goes, in 100 years, there'll be all new people anyway. Don't panic. If you can't relax, you'll never get to a viewing point. Now, step 2 is to insulate. Insulate. Pull back and form your own mental buffer zone. Play like you're watching a movie, and you're in it. Now, you can't change your perspective unless you detach your own emotions from the situation. If you're plugged in, you're trapped. When your hot buttons are pushed, you're on it with your point of view. You know, when I was still with University of Colorado, there was a woman in my office who was a total turkey. I mean, I would walk in, see that lady, the first thing in the morning, my teeth would start gritting. But I developed a way to insulate myself from her. I mentally buffered the whole situation. I walked in one day and I thought, I'm not going to let her get me any more like this. I'm not going to let her push my hot buttons. So I pulled back and I looked at her and I thought, there she is, Mary, the perfect asshole. A wonderful specimen. She's there. She's just being what she is. I call it the solution. The solution. You just look at other people and go, there they are. You know, we pay for professional help to insulate ourselves. Psychiatrists, consultants, a friend to talk to, all those people help insulate us from being emotionally tied into the rest of the world. Then we go to step 3, scan. Scan, broaden our perspective. Look at all possibilities. Consider several paths to the same end. As the old saying goes, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Now, we should make no judgments. Include every possible solution. Don't cut out something just because you don't happen to like it. Get all the data. Look for compromises, trade-offs. Remember, just as there are probably many paths to God, there are many ways to live life. There are a lot of ways to run a railroad or any business or government or the schools or whatever. Once we scan, then we can begin to empathize. Empathize, relate to other people. When we empathize, we look at the world as others see it. You know, the brilliant wisdom of the Native Americans, the Indians, still holds true. They counseled, don't judge others until you've walked a mile in their moccasins. You have to put yourself in the other person's place. It's not easy, but it's critical. Ask yourself, how would I feel? What would I think? What would I do? How would you feel if you were treated the way they are? When Dustin Hoffman dressed like a woman for his Tootsie Roll, he reported the way he was treated as he walked around as a lady was shocking. Julie Andrews reported the same insights when she dressed as a man for Victor Victoria. You know, several years ago, I experienced hate and hostility when I wandered around a shopping center dressed in a complete Arab costume. We had been at a party and decided to go out to the shopping mall. Now, I had a good tan, the robes, the headpiece, dark sunglasses. People stared, glared, jostled, and even spit at me. For a few hours, I walked in someone else's sandals. Now, you don't have to dress like them, but we have to imagine how they see things. Put yourself in another person's shoes and don't do anything to them that you wouldn't want done to you. Haven't you heard that before somewhere? Some people empathize easily. Good mothers often automatically empathize with their children. A true service-oriented business has empathy for its customers. Is this the way they'd like to be treated? They put themselves in the customer's place. Okay, we can apply RISE to nearly any situation. For example, a young employee who doesn't want to work overtime. Their older boss is irked. The employee is hostile. The boss has the point of view that you do what you're told to do. You sacrifice if necessary. The job comes first. The young woman sees it differently. You do what you want to do. You focus on your feelings and needs. You come first. So we have a Mexican standoff. The boss, by God, she's going to do what she told her. We'll fire her right now. Followed by, stuff it, sweetie. From a viewing point, we can ask, how about temporary help as a fill-in? Asking someone else to do it. Doing a trade-off. This time you do it, and next time it'll be different. Or starting a flex time system. You know, there are probably 20 possibilities if you rise to a viewing point. How about a teenager wants his own car? Family can't afford it. There's a lot of hostility, nagging, sulking. They're moping around. VP it. Ask, can he get a job? And then the father could co-sign on a loan. Would a cheaper motorcycle work just as well? Is it okay to, in fact, continue to use the family car? When you VP it, viewing point it, there are a lot of possibilities. Your future improves. It gets clearer when you see from a viewing point. Even when we look at the big picture of our total society, we can use a viewing point to see it better. If we rise up, we can see that there's a complete different world, a future getting ready to emerge. And the viewing point brings us into focus on that coming future. Four prevailing points of view now operating. The basic critical directions we're moving in our society are seen in big clusters of people that are already online with their point of view. Now, each cluster has a shared value set, a general behavior pattern, a shared point of view. Still at the top of the heap are ologers. Ologers have been directing the system. They're like the Lone Ranger, defending honor and glory. Ologers are in their mid-40s and older. Born before World War II, they were baptized in survival, rooted in the Great Depression and the Big War, World War II. Their prevailing point of view goes way back into the 1800s. When the going got tough, the tough got going. Now, when the going gets tough, young people leave. They don't want to mess with it. Women stood beside their men, actually behind them, and probably wanted to belt the SOB because of the way he was treating them. There was an overwhelming consistency about the way to live life. At home, father knew best. In schools, they had the illusion that there was one right answer and all the others were wrong. From the pulpit came the unquestioned word. That consistency cemented their point of view. The ologers' prevailing point of view is still widely reflected by our key decision makers. Today's top dogs, presidents, CEOs, superintendents, reverends, all those people, their point of view is clearly headed for a showdown at the OK Corral. Their point of view has been under attack since the 1960s, but the good old boys have circled their wagons and are prepared to go down with the ship. Now, Olagers see the present calm, and it is pretty quiet. The present calm is a sign to them that they've managed to ride out the social storms that were kicked up in the 1960s, 1970s. They're confident. Now, the source of all those tensions, of course, was their pushy offspring, the Newagers. Oh, the Newagers are a fun group. It's kind of, come on, baby, let the good times roll. Newagers are that big wad of people between their mid-30s and down to their early 20s. This baby boomer bulge shaboomed into the system, and Olagers panicked. My God, what have we created? They had spawned a generation with a new point of view, shocking behavior, and a strange sense of allegiance. They focused on themselves. It was me, 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 strictly me. They were different. We raised them differently. Permissiveness pervaded homes and schools. We spared the rod and spoiled millions of children. The good life surrounded them. Hula hoop, fun, fun, fun. And now that's all they want to do, fun, fun, fun. They were media saturated. The boob tube became the ultimate babysitter, their personal plug-in to a changing world. And there were so many of them. We didn't know what to do. So we kept herding them together, stuffed them in overcrowded nurseries, then packed them into scout troops and little league teams, then ran them through double-session schools, and then to overcrowded campuses, and then dumped them into a job market that was saturated. No wonder they want their space. They felt like sardines. Some of them smelled worse. They relate best to one another. If you had been bunched up like that, you'd be looking out for number one, too. Their music was loud, their sex was free, their expectations great. They want the best. Cars, clothes, food, vacations. Their attention span is short. About 5 to 10 minutes, or maybe on the job 6 months. They'll go for it with a vengeance, then drop the whole thing. In short, in the Olagers' point of view, Newagers are obnoxious. They were light years from and bewildering for their parents. We called it the generation gap. But it was more than age, it was an entirely new point of view. They now stand in the wings, ready for their shot at the system. It's coming soon, very soon. The Olagers keep hoping they'll grow up. They have. There are more people at 30 years old in our nation than around any other age point. The bulk of the bulge is well into its life cycle, and they are clearly still different, on the job and off. And they like to be off more than on. They're on the pro-leisure circuit, just kind of diddling around, taking it easy. The baby boomers won't, aren't, can't live their own lives as their parents and grandparents did at similar stages in their life cycle. Now, sandwiched between the Olagers and Newagers is a relatively small but potentially pivotal group. Now in their mid-40s down to mid-30s, this very special group lacks the clarity, the precision in point of view that is characteristic of the Olagers and Newagers. It's pretty obvious to these people what's good, bad, right, wrong, normal, not normal. Of course, they don't agree. These people with one foot in both camps just flat don't know. They're a little wishy-washy. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. They are schizos. Schizos in a true sense. Their theme song is Bridge Over Troubled Water. They're caught in a double bind, split in their point of view. They've invented diseases like burnout. Olagers didn't burn out. They just kept plugging along. Same job, 30 years. Newagers haven't turned on long enough to burn out. Schizos are hung up on relationships. They're huggers, just out there searching for other souls. Recently, I was doing a program in Columbus, Ohio. Johnny Bench was on it. And backstage, a bunch of people were milling around. And there was this one guy who was a real schizo, and he's just around hugging everybody. He goes up and he hugs Johnny Bench. You know, Bench is that real macho, Oliger mentality type. And Bench said, "You touch me again, you SOB, and I'll deck you." I mean, you don't go around hugging Johnny Bench, but schizos are out there. When schizos get divorced, and statistically, they're more likely to do so than not, they have the most pleasant party. They send little cards and have little brunches. It's just all so nice to be divorced. Schizos flip-flop a lot. One day they're into health foods, the next day they pig out on Big Macs. They're not really middle of the road, they just weave a lot. They love choices. They invented salad bars. What a mess, piling all that stuff on, wife swapping. Now, Oliger fooled around a little on the side, but schizos organized it. They run ads, they have little papers and posters, Basque and Robbins 31 flavors. Oligers cannot relate to rum raisin and amaretto slush. They are strictly chocolate, vanilla, strawberry. Ecstasy for schizos is having lots of choices. Agony is having to choose. They are the original have your cake and eat it too crowd. Look at the products they like. Light beer. What a disaster. Light beer. I mean, if we're going to have beer, let's have beer like they had in Germany. Tab. What a wimp drink Tab is. And then there's this one little gallery. Eating out with a schizo can try the patience of saints. Watch them read a menu. They read every damn item. Then they want to be the last order because I'd like to keep my options open. Schizos are true bridge people. They link Oligers and Neugers. They can and do go both ways. You know, it used to be that if you were over 40, you were over the hill. That was it. Pack it up. Now look at people like Linda Evans. She's over 40. Joan Collins, she's over 50. They're hot tickets. They're moving and grooving. Schizos are health conscious, self-conscious, and at least semi-conscious about money. Oh, but they're a fun group. Just now getting into the act as young adults, a whole new group. They are going to be allies with the schizos. Today's emerging generation are the syntax. Syntax. Beep, 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 beep. I mean, talk about confused. They like Boy George, whatever that is. Change is occurring so rapidly that there are now several distinct groups down here. But the lead edge, those people around 20 years old or so, the lead edge is certainly interesting. I mean, they have put a lot of things together. They're synthesizing. They've taken from the Oligers, taken from the Neugers. Hey, they got it figured out. They're cool. Ask them. Calm on the surface, intense, and technically astute. This is the first real wave of computer kids, but that's a potential flaw. When the computer goes down or their batteries go dead, they're at a loss. They don't know what to do. I mean, God forbid that they could figure it out with their mind. Their technological know-how makes them potentially very powerful and divisive at a very young age. War Games was only a movie, but the reality of the syntax using computers to invade government systems, corporate data banks, even change grades if they don't like them, that's all real. The power of the syntax is incredible, given all that technology. There's a perfect example. Last summer, a 22-year-old female computer operator was sexually harassed by her 55-year-old male chauvinist pig supervisor. She filed an official complaint, and the official reaction was, "Oh, honey, he was just having a little fun. Boys will be boys." Well, she worked in a computer terminal center that handled reservations for a major international airline and an international hotel chain. So she walked in one day after continuing to be harassed, sat at her console, tapped out a few instructions, and in effect walked out, kissing that job goodbye. That international airline and international hotel chain operated August 15th and 16th of last year with zero data in their computers. In effect, they're still trying to figure out how she did it. She left them a little note challenging them to try to come up with an answer. There's a tremendous amount of power in the real technological orientation that those people have. Now, beneath the cool surface of the syntax beats a heart of concern. They are personally very concerned about their own future, themselves, and what it's going to be like as they move into the adult world. Syntax are faced with a unique situation. They are the first generation in the history of our society that cannot exceed the success levels of their parents. Surveys show that a majority of today's youth do not believe that the present is better than the past, or that the future will be better than the present. And if they continue to believe that, it won't be. For the most part, millions of today's young cannot, at least in a material sense, exceed what their parents have achieved. Every American generation has been able to do better, but the next level is so high that it now looks unattainable. The parents of the syntax, however, did do better than their parents, and they are pushing today's kids. The stress is reflected in teenage suicides. Suicide among the young has become a national epidemic, according to a whole series of experts. Today's parents want their kids to be super babies and whiz kids, but they may get 7th grade burnout. So here we are, poised for the future. 4 distinct clusters, each with a unique point of view which directs their actions and would take us in a different direction. The clusters are in direct conflict. Who will prevail? Actually, no one will win in the old sense, because we're getting ready to play a complete new game. We're like the passengers and crew in that classic John Wayne film, The High and the Mighty. As mechanical problems threatened their flight in the middle of the Pacific, Captain Wayne announced, "We can't go back. We've passed the point of no return." The Olagers and their prevailing point of view is phasing out. The normal, natural attrition, death and retirement, is eroding the number of Olagers. Simultaneously, they are being replaced by schizos and newagers. We will experience a transformation as profound as the shift from the Dark Ages to the Renaissance, from the agricultural to the industrial. Forbes magazine recently said, America is now molting, shedding the old structures of the industrial giant that once dominated the world. You know, when the Dark Ages faded, no one really saw what was happening. No one was standing around in a courtyard saying, "Oh, here comes the Renaissance riding up." Or in the mid-1800s, no one said, "Let's throw the switches. It's time for the Industrial Revolution." They couldn't see what was happening. But the changeover that took so long in the past is occurring in a very short time frame. Somewhere in the mid-1990s, our nation will reach warp speed. Remember warp speed from Star Trek? Are you ready, Mr. Solo? And they would transform. Our nation is getting ready to boldly go where no nation, no society has ever dared to venture. We see the change, the new wave coming. We're zooming into the dawn of the 21st century. Right now, we are witnessing a total restructuring of the American dream machine. The reins of power will be taken over by a new prevailing point of view that is so totally different that the system as we know it will be redefined, redesigned, recreated. This is no Buck Rogers fantasy. This is for real. Already, we're retooling our economic system. Traditional industries like steel and autos are already well into painful analysis of new competitive realities. They're being forced to redesign, or their death is inevitable. General Motors recently signed a contract with Toyota. That would have been unheard of 10 years ago. It would have been called heresy in Detroit. Now, it's called smart. Smarts for survival. Continental Airlines recently declared bankruptcy. Several others appear to be on the brink. Continental has come back in a new form, a form recreated, redesigned to survive deregulated competition. In electronics and manufacturing and banking and retailing, throughout our economy, the restructuring spreads. But business is not alone in this changeover. In national politics, power shifts are beginning to surface. Gary Hart, Jesse Jackson are just the tip of the iceberg. Mondale recently said he doesn't understand how Hart can claim to represent the new generation. I mean, we're only 9 years apart in age. Poor Fritz. What he doesn't realize is that those 9 years are light years of difference in point of view. Gary Hart is the leading edge of a whole new way of seeing things. He's ahead of the transformation, but not by much. Jesse Jackson's Rainbow Coalition is the wave of the future. It's an idea whose time is coming. By the year 2000, given current trends, whites will be a minority. There will be more Hispanics, Orientals, and blacks than white people in the United States. Guess who's coming to dinner and what they're going to serve? In 1984, the idea of a woman for vice president began receiving serious consideration for the first time. It is now not a question of if, it's a question of when. What we're seeing clearly now is that national trends begin locally and work their way up. The local political scene is already rewritten. I mean, look at minority mayors, females in Denver, Atlanta, Detroit, Houston, Chicago, San Francisco. San Francisco, you can understand. They're a little strange. But Houston, that's Space City, USA. They're still rough and tough and wear their Levi's tight and eat their steaks well done. And Kathy Whitmire is the mayor. She looks like Dustin Hoffman, for real, the way he looked in Tootsie. And she's telling those macho honchos what to do. Entertainment is a total mixed bag. On the one hand, we have the rock groups. U2, they sound warlike, but they're Irish Christians who sing the praises of God to a rock beat. On the other extreme, we have the perversion seen on MTV. Children as young as 5 years old can get daily doses of sexual violence and humiliation. The message on MTV is gag me, chain me, beat me. It's more than disgusting, it's frightening that 38 million young people watch it weekly. It's a textbook for S&M. Along with some beauty, there's a lot of beast. On the brighter side, though, musical America is opening up. People like Charlie Daniels and Anne Murray. I mean, that's good old boys and country music sweethearts. But they're singing about something besides broken-hearted love. They're asking about larger issues, social problems, the search for peace, the lingering tragedy of Vietnam. On Broadway, a major hit is a musical romantic comedy about gays. Something is happening in at least part of Hollywood. Gandhi won the Academy Award. Now, terms of endearment. The themes are shifting to peace and love and relationships. Relationships. That's the word of the 80s. Look at what television brings us in programs. Fame, The Jeffersons, General Hospital, The Young and the Restless, and Dynasty. My God, have you seen Dynasty? They do it all. There is no subject, no relationship, no behavior, too extreme, too taboo to be dealt with. We've come a long way from Ozzie and Harriet and I Love Lucy. Best-selling books are tracking the breakups of the old and the shape of things to come. Read The Third Wave, New Rules, The Aquarian Conspiracy, Megatrends, Search for Excellence. No one who reads those books can deny that the point of view of the Olagers is fading into the sunset. It's get along, little doggy. It's been good to know you. By the end of this century, in just a few years, within the lifetimes of us, the power lines will have crossed. A new coalition will be at the helm. We will pass through the transformation point, come out on the other side sometime during the 90s. A blend, a blur, a mix. The inevitable shift in the prevailing point of view will be over, and we will be different. Now, a lot of it's going to look the same. Planes will fly, buildings will sit there, cars will drive, but the patterns of life, Our work, our play, our personal and public lives will all be different. In so many ways we can't even comprehend. We are entering a world of paradoxes, a world where simultaneously we see existing opposites. And it works. We're going to have high-tech and no-tech. I mean, look at some kitchens. Already, some people are cooking with microwave and wood-burning stoves at the same time. We're going to see a world where the spiritual and the scientific exist side by side simultaneously. Star Wars gave us a clue. It was a world of high-tech robots and Obi-Wan Kenobi and the Force. Right now, though, in our schools, there's a big fight between the creationists and those who believe in evolution. I mean, let's face it, the truth is no one knows. They believe, but they don't know. No one was standing there saying, oh, happened in 7 days, or no one was saying, oh, here comes man coming out of the trees. No one really knows. What we'll probably see is a combination. A number of leading physicists and theologians believe that people will increasingly see the hand of a creator in the process of evolution, combination. We'll experience greater sameness, greater diversity, greater individuality. Recently we had a little product called Cabbage Patch Dolls. What hideous little creatures. But they were very interesting because that is the first product that has been mass-produced, millions of them spewed out, but it wasn't cookie-cutter production. Each doll was unique. Each doll was individual. Again, it was greater sameness and greater individuality. We're going to see greater security-seeking and greater risk-taking. We'll have skydiving accountants all over the place. We'll see self-denial and self-indulgence side by side. Example, yogurt dessert bars. Have you seen that? New thing. Coming from the schizos, of course. They have all these goodies laid out, and you get a big pile of yogurt. And then you put chocolate and caramel and strawberries and nuts and cream, and they just love it. We're going to see this in the situation where we have air-conditioned campers that we drive out to rough it in the woods, or drive air-conditioned cars to air-conditioned gyms where we sweat like hell. Again, the combination. In effect, we go to a world of multiple choices, multiple options, greater diversity. No more true or false. It's going to be all of the above. Now, we can deal effectively with our inevitable future if we go with the flow. The future is there. It's coming. Barring some unforeseen disasters, natural or man-made screw-ups, we will pass through the transformation point in just a few years. Now, unless you're ready to cash in your chips or check out, there's absolutely no way you're going to avoid changing. Everyone's going to have to give a little. If we fight the change patterns, we are doing an incredibly stupid thing. We are not riding the horse in the direction it's going. Have you ever tried to do that? You can't. You get automatic trouble, frustration, irritation, big costs. And the ultimate cost of not seeing and dealing with these new realities is our actual survival. Our survival. Mine, yours, ours, the nation's, the schools, churches, companies, all of it depends, absolutely depends, on where and what we see. Now, a lot of people are going to take the Doris Day approach to the future. Remember her singing, "Que sera, sera, whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see." But if we rise to a viewing point, we can see our future. Sadly, a lot of people don't even want to try. They ignore, block out the turbulence. Hey, sports fans, ready for the big one? Pop a top, relax, settle back. Millions are buffering reality. Hey, it's party time. Let's eat, drink, and try to make merry. They're suffering from chronic overboogie. We cling to chemical and technological escape hatches. Sniff a few lines, flip the channel, buy a new toy. Some people dismiss, deny what's right in front of their noses. Well, here at Hollowbrook Country Club, things are on an even keel. What say we play another 9? And then there's the brush off. Oh, we've just been going through a phase. The pendulum swinging back. Wrong, Kemosabe. If you think this doesn't really relate to you, you had better think again. It's going to hit you like a Mack truck. We cannot bury our heads, turn our backs. If we want to be all we can be, if we want to have a future that works for all of us, if we sincerely want to have a hand in the creation of a better world, then we cannot do less than at least try to use a viewing point. A viewing point can take us where few have dared to venture. On a viewing point, we change what we are because where we see is beyond the limits of our point of view. Believe me, it's worth the effort. If you start rising to a viewing point, you begin to get something so incredibly valuable. You'll get balance. Balance. Balance in all dimensions of your life. Things won't be out on an extreme. You can decide on the right mixture in all areas. You know, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. But all play and no work makes Jack a deadbeat. We need both work and play. Olagers worked non-stop, plugging away. Newagers, they don't want to work. They work to play. Olagers haven't stopped to smell the roses, but newagers expect FTD to deliver them. Balance. The key is balance. The answer is somewhere in between. On a viewing point, you get balance. Balance in mind and heart and your gut. Unfortunately, in our society, a lot of people aren't balanced with their mind, their heart, and their gut. There are a lot of people who come from their mind, and they are intellectual masturbators. They have a lot of fun with themselves, dazzle the world with data, but it doesn't make flip in terms of reality. A lot of people come from their heart, and they are so gentle and so sweet, and they are trampled by the rest of the world. And then some people come only from their gut. And man, they're up there and they're doing it, and this is the way it is, baby. The answer to most things, to these things, is balance. We have to bring all three of those into play. In our society, we have literally been programmed not to come from the mind, the heart, and the gut, but rather to listen to data. We need a song. Waiting for the data, waiting for the data. People are sitting around waiting for answers, when if we are balanced between our mind, our heart, and our gut, if we listen to what's inside of us, then we know what the answer should be. We don't have to wait for data. We don't have to use consultants. We don't have to look for answers. We will know. Balance. Balance in the world. Balance in the way we relate. You know, we used to think that managers were either theory X or theory Y, one or the other, not balanced. The X people distrusted employees. They kept them beaten down. And the Y people just loved them to death. Just so nice, so pleasant. Reality is sometimes X, sometimes Y, somewhere in between. We know that good management is somewhere between. It's flexible but firm, compassionate but holds people accountable and responsible. Parents, in dealing with their children, desperately need balance. If they overindulge them, if they never hold them accountable and responsible for their behavior, if they lavish things on them, or if they beat them all the time. Those are the extremes. Somewhere we need a situation of tough love for the 80s. Again, showing love, but also being very tough, holding them accountable and responsible. Can you imagine the chaos we're going to have if any one point of view starts to dominate? What if Democrats dominated with their point of view, or Republicans? If management lorded it over unions or busted them, or vice versa? How about letting the Phyllis Schlaflys of the world run our school systems? Jerry Falwell will edit all our textbooks. Maybe Richard Nixon could be our legal counselor. And Hugh Hefner can write job descriptions for women. Do you want to let Jane Fonda chart our foreign policy? They do have a point of view. And everyone's point of view is half right and wholly wrong. The truth includes all points of view. In a viewing point, we balance the total perspective. We see that no one point of view has been blessed with rightness. If we balance, the underpinning shifts in every relationship that we have. one of the most dramatic relationships has been the struggle to win. From cavemen 10,000 years ago to present-day Central America to corporate boardrooms, teachers, parents, children, everyone has been engaged in a struggle to win. An I win, you lose contest. It was based upon an unquestioned assumption that went like this. In order for me to win, I've got to make you lose. And if you're allowed to win, I won't survive. So we've struggled to dominate, control, use, and exploit other people. All of it was out of fear. Fear for our own security. As a song said a few years ago, everybody needs somebody to look down on. With this approach, solving the problem became secondary to staying on top. Lies, deception, any means was worth it in the past to make other people lose. Not only did the main issue often get lost in the struggle, but no solution lasted very long. You see, losers are always plotting and scheming for a chance to turn the tables. But now a new assumption is emerging, an amazingly simple shift in thinking, but dramatic in its power. This new perspective moves people from fear and competition to a situation where they say, in order for me to win, I have to make you win too. Because if you lose, I lose too. Eventually, it will happen. If we truly look at our integrated, highly complex, high-tech world, we can see clearly now that we're all in the same boat. More and more, we live in a world where, by damn, we're all going to win together or we're all going to lose it together. No one is immune when one terrorist threatens us all. The win-win approach is an idea whose time has come. It works because it's balanced. Everyone wins. Recently, the employees of Delta Airlines reached into their pocket, pulled out $37 million, and bought Delta a new 767. Down in South Carolina, Piggly Wiggly, the grocery store chain, stuck by its employees during the recent economic dip. They didn't lay anyone off. They had high-level managers out on the loading docks taking stuff off and putting it on trucks. But they didn't abandon their people. They stood by them. They kept them winning. Recently, the employees of Piggly Wiggly, South Carolina, bought their company a new $72,000 refrigerator rig. On the side of that truck, it proudly says, "The rig for the pig." And on the front of Delta 767, "The spirit of Delta." The spirit of Delta. And if you relate to those people, if you look at the employees, at the managers, you'll see that all of them are winning. IBM, with its recent introduction of a personal computer, broke all the competitive rules. They released data that historically would have been held in their protection. They weren't going to let their competitors know anything. IBM just put it out. They said, hey, it's big enough for all of us. And all sorts of new entrepreneurs have gotten in on a piece of the action because IBM made it possible for not only IBM to win and their employees and their customers, but all sorts of other people. Customers, employees, management, stockholders, families, everyone wins when we go to win-win as an idea that works. The balance in a viewing point makes it all possible. To shift, to make your world, my world, our world work, we have to do it. Now, you know, no one can make you go to a viewing point. If your mind is closed, then the key is all in your intention. Unless you intend to do it, to live it differently, you're going to stay stuck in your point of view. Your future is going to be just the same, little machine. You will never rise. Now, if you're satisfied with your present, the way things are, with your relationships, your job, your life, if your life is working on the job off just the way you want it to, if the way your life is going is the way you want it to be, then just coast along. But don't be surprised if people look at you and say, Ah. But if you want to change, you have to intend it. You have to commit to change. You have to make a commitment to make the future different. People don't have a lot of commitments. When we make one, it makes a difference. What are you committed to? What are you trying to change? What do you want to see out here? You know, a lot of people aren't committed to things. They are just coasting along, ignoring. But there are people in the world that we can look to and decide they have made a commitment. They are making a difference. You know who is a great modern heroine? Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa should be a hero for every one of us. Mother Teresa could have been just a regular little nun, and she could have just nunned around and done those nice little nunny things. Now, nuns are great people, but they're not real high profile. They're not out there really making a massive shift. But Mother Teresa decided she was going to make a difference. Mother Teresa put it on the line. She puts it on the line every day. She is out there committed to making a difference in the world. What do you put on the line? What do you put your ass on the line for? Or are you just busily protecting your ass, as most people are, with every sweet little breath that they take? Make a commitment to make a difference. There were two women in the United States about 3-4 years ago. They were just kind of regular little housewives. One of them sold real estate on the side. I mean, they didn't do too much, but those two women had a significant emotional event in their lives. Something changed them, and they made a commitment to make a difference. And they formed an organization called MADD, M-A-D-D, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And because of those women, the laws in 39 states have changed. Thousands of lives have been saved because they made a commitment to make a difference. Lee Iacocca made a difference at Chrysler. He put it on the line. He created a whole new point of view, a whole new perspective and viewing point, making it happen. You know, you don't have to be someone like the president of a company, or you don't have to be out there in some social commitment, or you don't have to have a tragedy trigger you. There's a guy who operates a shoe shine stand in the airport in New Orleans. That guy makes a difference. Every pair of shoes that comes through his stand goes out of that stand a 10. They're great. What's great? What's a 10 in your life? We can all do it, whatever the job, whatever our level. Every one of those people has a vision beyond themselves. They see the future differently. Where they see is the way it can be. They see what's wanted. They see what's needed. They're committed. Their mind, their heart, their gut is directed toward making it happen. Where do you see? You know, from now on, you are different. You have changed in the last few minutes. From now on, there's a little tape running in the back of your mind. That little tape is going to say to you from now on, where are you? Is this what you want? Is this really the way you want it to be? Are you stuck in the rightness, the righteousness of your point of view? Or are you opening up? Are you up there? If you're up, you see it all. And it's life, yours and everyone else's. And you can love it and live it and give it. And you'll have a passion for it. You become a creator, a magician, and you create your future for real. Go for it.